Ladies, both of you come with quite a few decades of experience in the career mentoring space. But I guess help us to get to know you a little bit by way of maybe a personal anecdote of sorts. In your experience of career mentoring, like how have you shown up in this space? Maybe here is from Alina?
How have I shown up? Okay, maybe a little bit about myself. No, I don't have decades of career mentoring, but maybe that's a way of hiding my age. Maybe just a little bit. So I actually got an initial taste of it because I was actually mentoring the youth, as in really young, 13 to 16-year-old in a non-profit organization. Now, I wouldn't consider them youth the way you would define it, but it gave me a taste of what that generation, which could be like 2 generations away from me, was feeling. Like the kind of struggles that they were feeling or the kind of struggles that they were going through was very different from me. So I think that was my initial taste. And fast forward thereafter, when I started my company called Connect One, actually we support startup founders in helping them build successful teams. And as you know, startup founders are youth. They're all young people. So I think my journey really started by advising founders. They were all in the universities at that time because I think the startup ecosystem was very young. Then I went on to actually help them build teams, and I helped them to find people. And all of them, whether they were the founders themselves or the employees they were hiring, were all youth, young people, 1 generation away from me. So I think that's kind of how I started. I'm also a trained career coach, but it accelerated during COVID because suddenly, bang, 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 right? Everyone was faced with job losses. And that's kind of when I started to do more of it, more as a charity. So everyone that I coach contributed to a COVID charity of their choice. So since then, I've been practicing it a little bit more. So that's me.
Thanks so much. Yvonne, what about yourself?
Thank you, Sharon. I think I would say all of us here are, family. So allow me to be very open and very vulnerable and very honest here. So I started career mentoring actually 16 years ago. And it started because I came from a very, very humble background. And to be very honest, in my background, there was very little social, family, or even financial capital. But through the years, I was very thankful and very blessed to meet people who cared enough to pause for a moment, to speak life into me, to encourage me, to uplift me. So I realized one day, I realized that I could pay it forward. When there was a young person right in front of me, 17 years old, he was so downcast because he got a major scolding by one of his favorite teachers. He was so down. And I looked at him and I said, what would be different if you were to be able to mend this relationship with your favorite math teacher who stood, by you through thick and thin? And that was magical. I think not just for him, but for me, because I immediately saw that lifting of his eyes. He looked at me and said, you mean that's possible? I say, why not? Why don't we sit down? Come, let's come up with 5 ways that we can mend this relationship. Maybe we can start with, what do you think? He was the one who said it, 17-year-old boy, tall, a bit gruff looking, if you know what I mean, but he has such a good heart. He said, maybe I can apologize. I said, yeah, that's a very good thing to do, Then I was like, then we thought of 4 other ways. I suddenly realized that I could speak life into this person. I could bring about some hope and clarity in that person. So that started me. I didn't know that was called mentoring, if you know what I meant. I just knew that I could bring about some hope and clarity in that person. And then because of my humble background, I think we're family, right? So I always looked at friends who had a lot of connections, if you know what I meant. They were like, oh, so-and-so, oh, my uncle is so-and-so, my father is so-and-so, so I got this internship, I got this opportunity. And I was like, I don't have. Then how? So I built my career bit by bit, step by step. And one day I spoke to this, I called him a mentor, and I said, can you look at my resume and can you recommend some roles to me? I'm also going to tell you what I shortlisted for myself. And he looked at me and he looked at the list and he said, can you think of something bigger for yourself? Because I really think you're meant for something bigger. And then he immediately Googled, he showed me this company, and he sent me a PDF file of some of the roles that this company has. And he said, I think you should look at something like this. Tears filled my eyes immediately. Not because I felt I was unworthy for those roles, but because that person cared enough to speak life into me and say that you are meant for something bigger. I'm changed forever. And since then, for the past 16 years, I've been really doing my very best, sharpening my sword in the eyes, or rather in the words of Stephen Covey, doing my very best to equip myself so that whenever I mentor someone, especially a young person, I can give my very best to that person.
Thank you so much. You know, I think just by way of introduction, right, there are already so many, I think, things and possibilities of how, as a career mentor, we can actually invest and contribute towards another person's life. And you know, if I could borrow from Yvonne, one of the things is sometimes that person just needs someone else to believe in him, just for that moment. Yeah, and I can see by your nods, right? You perhaps have experienced that it just took one person to believe in you, and therefore, you know, I guess realizing and wanting to see, being able to pay that forward is one. The second thing that I kind of wanted to highlight that Yvonne pointed out also is, all of us, our stories are very different. And our starting points are also very different, you realize? Our access to resources and opportunities are often quite different. And therefore, as mentors, right, doing the hard work of finding out what is, in a way, the starting point for our mentee is quite important, because it might be very different from even our own starting point. Right? Now, in this whole exercise of career mentoring, there are multiple perspectives that come into play. Right? There's, of course, like a lot of us in the room, we are coming in knowing that, okay, we have X, Y, Z to contribute, right? And I want to see how this could possibly benefit somebody that I mentor, right? But there are also other perspectives that come in. There is the perspectives of the employers and the job market, those things that are happening on the external environment. But then, of course, there's also this thing about the mentee's reality, right? The person that we are mentoring. So, knowing that there are all these multiple perspectives and we might not know everything, right, in that conversation, I think maybe it would be interesting to hear if we were to step in the shoes of a mentee, right? What are some things that would be useful for us to be aware of? So, Eleanor, maybe I could ask you to kick us off with that thought. You know, so the question I have is, you know, in your experience, what are the common needs and challenges that you've observed as, you know, these mentees navigate transitions and different things that they encounter?
So most of my mentees are actually job seekers. So they come to me, you know, just because of the space that I'm in. So they come to me typically because there is a challenge, you know, that they are facing, either with their career or with their choices that they need to make or something, you know, to do with jobs. So I think that's just a bit of background about the kind of people that I meet. So I think in terms of needs and challenges, a few things that come to mind. One is this, you know, striving for growth. So I know we've talked about the strawberry generation, but actually in my experience, I haven't met many that I would even call strawberry generation. A lot of them are actually very overachievers. So in terms of growth, they're looking for things like, oh, the best company to work for. Is this company going to give me the kind of learning that I need? Is this company prestigious? Is this company something that I can boast about to my friends, you know, and things like that. So indexing for growth is very much on the minds of the young people that I meet. Right? The second thing is, I think this generation is really autonomy and flexibility. You know, they are, especially maybe because of what has happened with COVID and with remote work. So I think the young people of today have really gotten a taste of being autonomous, like my boss doesn't need to hang around me. You know, at the same time, the flexibility, work anywhere, work anytime, but yet delivering the results. So I think that's, I feel, another need. I mean, if some of you have heard, you know, there's this joke about WFH, work from home, WFB, work from Bali, WFP, work from Phuket, right? Like, so we'll ask, oh, this week you WF what, you know? So I think there's a lot more of these sort of like growth, flexibility and autonomy that I see growing as a need. In fact, one of the startup companies that I work with have rolled out this new policy. 1 month, they give you a subsidized 1 month workcation. Work from wherever you want for 1 month. We subsidize you. Part of actually understanding the needs of their employees, which are all young people, and you know, maybe it's part of retention as well. So I think being autonomous and flexibility is the other need. The third need is probably a sense of purpose, in a way. I think for some, they very, very early on, they already have this sense of purpose. Like, I want to do something that would change the world, whether it is like sustainability, the very sexy thing, or something else, right? But there's a sense of like, I really want to do something that would change the world. But for many that I've met, this sense of purpose actually comes in midway in their career. So the first few years of their life, they want to be in JP Morgan or Amazon Web Services, like big names, right? Because the salary is so high. But then after 3 years, they realize there's this emptiness. And amazing, because my generation, we feel the emptiness 10 years later or 15 years later. But for the young, for many of you here as well, right? The emptiness comes after 2 years, after 3 years. Probably because all of you guys, or the young people are today a lot more aware and a lot more knowledgeable. So I think that sense of purpose will come. Some will come very early, and some of them will come around 3 years. So I think those, are the needs of today. So as you meet young people that you mentor, there is this 3 things, right, that I typically try to, because if I put myself in my shoes, back then, 25 years ago when I started work, I didn't think about flexibility, autonomous, I don't talk about growth, I just, go to work, do my work, and then get my salary. So, just understanding the needs of the youth of today is, probably fairly important to set the right mindset as we coach. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So it's a certain tier that sees, I guess, the emphasis on desire for growth, autonomy, flexibility, and discovering that sense of purpose. Yeah, Yvonne, anything to add on? Is there other types of challenges that they've encountered that you've observed?
I would say because of all the different kinds of youths I met, they really come from a spectrum. There are some, like what Elena was saying, they're very high achievers, and they will tell me and allow me to translate later. Yeah, they will tell me, I don't care what you recommend me, Miss Yvonne. I just want to work in a bank because I want to be able to tell. I want my parents to be able to tell the relatives 我做银行的, meaning I want my parents to be able to tell relatives I work in a bank. My daughter works in a bank. She alights at Raffles Place MRT. True verbatim, yeah. I want my parents to be able to say, oh, my daughter alights at Raffles Place, wear very nice clothes, walk very fast to go to the office. Because then I realized when I unearthed their motivations, they come from very difficult backgrounds. Their parents want to be able to boast, because their parents sacrifice a lot to be able to send them to very good universities so they can do very well. So we have a spectrum like that. We also have a spectrum, and with all due respect to young people here, I also have a spectrum that I work with, and they are like, I really, really don't care, Like, seriously, yeah, I'm very good, no? If my boss cannot recognize my capabilities, it's really not my fault, They are I would call, and I'm going to quote this, it's an acronym from Dr. Tim Elmore. It's actually called EPIC. Our young people today are experiential, which is why the YOLO and the FOMO. YOLO means you only live once. FOMO means, no, I must try. People have seen the Northern Lights, I must save up so that I can see Northern Lights as well. People have tried it on Instagram, I'm going to try it. They're very experiential. P, they are very participatory. They may look like they don't want to care. They may look like they're very apathetic. Actually, they want. It means something to them. But they cannot show it. They like poker faces. Because if they show it too much, it means, I look so desperate. Cannot. I must look like, Actually, when the boss says, you can work from home for 2 days a week. Yoo-hoo! But, it's normal. My friend's company works 3 days from home. Yeah. Actually, inside, they are jumping for joy. But they cannot show it.
Wait, so P also sorry. Poker face,
yeah, that's true. Okay. I will write
participating and poker face.
I'll write to Dr. Tim Elmore. Influence his literature. And then they're very image driven. Actually, that's why Instagram, TikTok is so popular with them. Because when they see something, they'll be able to remember it a lot longer. They're a lot more visual than us, I would say, in that generation. And C, they like to be connected. Which is why, try. If you tell them, just for the sake of self-growth, leave your phone at home, they'll look at you and say, oh my gosh, it's suicidal, I cannot, I must hold my phone because I will never be able to miss any messages from WhatsApp, from Instagram, from TikTok, from whatever. I need to be connected. And with the EPIC framework, sometimes when I look at them, I feel for them because they're really in a very difficult world. I really don't envy their lives. Sometimes, I ask them, tell me about your day. Just tell me, what do you do? Like, what happens when you wake up? And they say, wake up? Like, what time? I say, what time do you wake up? And they say, I sleep sometimes at 2, 3 a.m. And then I wake up because I have to wake up. the moment they wake up at 8 a.m., they actually tell me there's a routine, very subconscious routine of clearing the messages and the notifications from Instagram. They don't use Facebook anymore. I mean, side point, there was once I asked the whole class, hey, how many of you use Facebook? I raised my hand very high, I was the only hand. And I was like, yeah, actually I was just stretching, Yeah, and they were like, right, Miss Yvonne, right. They use Instagram, and they know in their minds, I clear Instagram first, then I clear TikTok. I look at the notifications, oh my gosh, this person is wearing this. My gosh, this person has clinched this internship. How come my notification didn't come in? How come there's not even a rejection email for me? And they start going into this, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. Then they dress up, they go to school, and as they walk, they know, oh no, how come this person is hanging out with that person? Does it mean that they're doing the project together? What about me? How come I cannot get my project group? Something is wrong. I go into class, and then how come everybody knows the questions to ask and the questions, or rather the answers to give, and I don't know? And for a lot of universities, class participation marks are very, very high. You're looking at 40%. And there is a teaching assistant in every class, which means they will track the number of questions you ask and the number of marks you'll be given at the end of 13 weeks. Can you imagine that kind of stress? Picture with me, all of us, most of us are working, I believe. You are in a meeting. For every question that you ask, your boss is going to give you a grade. Or for every silly answer that you give, your boss is going to say, oh no, this year, D, confirm D. Don't need to change anymore. There's a bell curve. We have bell curves, they have bell curves as well. It is very cruel sometimes. And that's like only half the day, Because classes are, for example, 8:15 to 11:30, 12 o'clock. And then they start, oh, so-and-so is going lunch with that person. What about me? I don't have a lunch crowd. Oh no, the person that I like is going out with another person. Are they already together? I better check Instagram. It's so real. And guess what? In every university, we're telling them, you need to get internships, you need to get good CCAs, you need to be in leadership, cannot be sub-community, meaning sub-community means like second-tier leadership. You need to be in the first-tier leadership. I really do not envy them. Sometimes when I see them, I look at their eyes and I say, how are you? And they start tearing up. They say, I don't know how to make a mark, Miss Yvonne. I want to be someone significant. And for all that I've described just now, a lot of them actually don't get family support. It's not because their families don't love them. Sometimes parents love them. And I'm a mom. I'm sure a lot of your parents here, we love our children. But whether our children can feel sometimes, you know what I mean, right? Sometimes they may tell me, my parents don't support me, they don't understand me. And then when I dig in a little more, actually, they know their parents love and support them. But they feel that they're all alone. It's this whole like, nobody understands me. The narrative in their mind, nobody understands me. I'm all by myself. I'm all alone. I'm an island. We have to help them to unpack that a little. I know it's a lot, I think some of you are feeling a lot of burden for these young people, but it's true, they're going through a lot. And I learned not to go in with preconceived notions. Actually, when I was your age, right, it will iron out by itself, don't worry. When you reach 40 years old, all these are insignificant. I understand. I'm turning 40 soon, and I know the things that I worry about at 22, actually, you slip over it, you're okay. But you tell that to a 22-year-old now, it won't work. They're really going through a lot.
I think part of it is really recognizing, and I suppose maybe that's the dilemma of a lot of parents as well. It's a very different world that they are having to navigate, which is very different from when we were 20-somethings, right? Of course, present company excluded, some of you are still in your 20s.
Sorry.
But maybe that actually becomes your common ground and your entry point. That empathy it does come to you more logically because you have kind of been there as well, and that's how you can empathize. Thank you for sharing those insights. I think there's a lot that they are going through. After hearing her, right, it's like, oh my God, I just stepped into their shoes for those 2 minutes. I feel tired already, all the self-talk that is going on, right? Just having to grapple with all these different things. So as mentors, maybe sometimes we just become that space where they can, for that moment, just let it go, and be heard and be understood just for that moment. So that's one perspective, understanding and stepping into the shoes of the mentee. The reality is, though, that the work environment, economics, industries, trends, all of those things also figure into helping a mentee co-design their career path. And they are also still on that road of discovery. So I guess the next question to ask, if we shift gears, right, lenses of what the mentees are having to go through, what about the employer's point of view? What about the markets? What about the industries? What are some things as career mentors you want to be asking about, and what have you discovered? Yeah, maybe we could hear from Elena.
Okay, maybe before that, I just want to add on to what Yvonne has said, right? Because I think she talked a lot about slightly younger when they're in school, the kind of stress that they feel, and the kind of like all the struggles that they feel. And I do, because I work a lot more with slightly older, so and I can actually see that translating to their career. But I think the one thing that we see is the burnout is faster. So it's very common to hear about young people in their 25, 26, maybe before 30, saying that, oh, I need to go on a 1-year sabbatical. I need to take a 6 months off. There was this person who approached one of my clients and said, when they're applying for a job, I'd like to work for 6 months, then after that, I will take off for 6 months. So it's kind of because they pack so much into themselves when they were at that age, which are a lot of the youth that you deal with, that when the minute they hit and start work, right, they're already on the way to burnout. So I think that segues into a little bit about the employer's perspective. Like, how do the employers actually manage this youth of today? Is that the question that you wanted to ask?
It sounds like they're inheriting Chao Ta people already.
Yeah.
Like, wow, very chuan, they come in really, and then, So how have employers, dealt with it? Yeah.
Exactly. So because of exactly what Yvonne said about being FOMO, right? Sorry, I forgot the epic one, but I remember FOMO last word, right? Right. So the thing about being FOMO, so when they enter the workplace, the first thing I've had many of my career mentees ask me, hey, Elena, when should I be thinking about my next job? Actually, they just started their current job. And they're already like, it's like my husband's scolding my kids for asking, what's for dinner when we're having lunch? I don't know whether you all do that, but it's a bit like that, So it's like, when should I be looking for my next job when they're actually just started their current job? It baffled me for a while, So I then read this book. And I actually want to read it out to you, so it's on my phone, called 4,000 Weeks. So this gentleman called Oliver Burke, if you haven't read it, you should. So it's not a productivity book. I've had enough of Atomic Habits and all those kind of productivity books. And I really like, so he talks about our life, we have 4,000 weeks, right? So why do you have to chong like that and then burn out before you even reach 30? So, and he gave an example in his book. So this Harvard professor actually sort of like, make all her students sit in the New York Metropolitan Museum, right, and choose one painting, one art piece. Just sit there for 3 hours, no distraction, no phone, no whatever, nothing, right? And this student actually wrote, oh my gosh, for the first 40 minutes, I nearly felt like dying. I was like, can I move to another painting? Can I turn around and do something else? And the professor says, no, absolutely be present, stare at the painting. And this lady, the student actually wrote, after 40 minutes, something started to change. I started to appreciate a little bit more about the setting of the painting or the strokes that were on this art piece. And then after 80 minutes, I started to appreciate the entire sensory, I wanted to read out the whole thing to you, but obviously I didn't open my phone. So the beauty of this art piece. And at the end of the 3 hours, I almost felt like, I didn't want to leave anymore. It was such a beautiful experience. So I think what I'm trying to say is that, the employers struggle with our young people staying present. And I think I tell the young people the same thing. Be present when you have chosen this job. Don't think about the next job so quickly. Be present, make the best out of this job. Because if you are constantly, it's like what Jack Ma would say, right? If you see 10 rabbits and you only go for that one rabbit, right? Don't try to go for all 10 rabbits, right? They are moving all at the same time. So I think that being present, understanding how to make, how one should stay present, is probably something that the employer needs to understand. Now, that means these youth are thinking about the next thing while they're there. So understanding that and then developing programs that will help them continue to learn, engage, grow might be one thing that I realize. Yeah, but at the same time, as I'm telling the youth to be present, I also tell them to not, be inward, right? So to be present, to be aware of what's happening outside and also be out there. So I think this is one thing that I noticed about the youth, and I do feel that employers need to understand that they're constantly, FOMOing and wondering what's next and how do we address that to retain them,
Yeah. I do recognize that it is a challenge though, because imagine all the self-talk that was happening in the mind of a mentee, right? And it is literally telling them, no, be present and stop. I can just imagine how the fear becomes even more amplified because there's a fear of losing out even on that. If I stop, everybody else goes ahead of me, right? So maybe it's a question I can ask the both of you. Like, what are some things that you have invited mentees to consider for them to recognize that value of being present? What are your approaches to that? Because it is a lot for them to give up, right? Because it's very counterintuitive for them. Yeah.
I look at the 3 Ps when I see a mentee. Every mentee of ours, they have different, or rather they are in different phases of their lives. They have different paces and priorities. Because of the different phases that they're in their lives, they may be, for example, a fresh university graduate. However, in that phase, some of them, and it's true, would have already started looking at flats for their, with their better halves. Some they're like, no, I want to maybe devote the next 5 years of my life in an overseas posting. Different phases. Some of them, I'm sorry, Miss Yvonne, I cannot take on a very exciting role. I need to do a very regular role because my parents are very old and they're not very well. I need to be home. So there's really different phases. So I would say the thought of and the idea of being present is really dependent. It's really dependent on the phases in their lives. Some of our mentees naturally have very fast paces. They may look like they can take on a lot. The intensity is amazing. How do you know the intensity? You will know when you speak with them. As they speak, you realize that I can't catch up. I can't keep up. Like, whoa, hold on. You sound like you're living a 48-hour life in a 24-hour day. Some of them, their paces are really fast. Some of them, their priorities are focused on, it could be, and I'm not judging here, material comforts, or it could be, for example, I want to change the world. I have so many young people telling me, and I'm very proud of them when they say that, I want to eradicate poverty, Miss Yvonne. I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference for this group. And I respect them for saying that. And when I see their eyes, when I hear them, the disposition tells me that they're not faking it. They really want to do something. Sometimes our employers, and I know some of us are employers here with all due respect as well, I think I do keep hearing that, young people today are this and that. We hear a lot of bad press about them. Actually, I would like to speak up for them. Allow me to. They actually have very strong learning agility. I mean, for example, I know some of us, we may not be the best in Excel. Some of our young people are also not very strong in Excel. But when I ask them, how do you do this? Yeah, Miss Yvonne, yesterday, I went to YouTube, I went to Coursera, I went to LinkedIn, I asked for help. Then I look at my friend doing, I got it. And I'm like, I can't even tell them that I can do it, I probably had to plow through a lot of different manuals and books and all. They are so fast. They are so quick. They are so good. And actually, once they are focused on something that they want to do, they can really do it. They really can go all out. So I realize as a mentor, what I want to do is to refocus them a little, redirect them a little, especially when I know, in some sense, they may be heading towards the wall. I don't want them to get bruised and bleed. If I could, I would draw them back a little. But sometimes, and I think you know what I mean, some of them have to go through it. And that's when I'm there and say, I'm sorry that this has happened. How can I help?
So maybe what is helpful, I think, in considering, right, how different it is for a mentee in terms of their pacing, in terms of their priorities, as well as the phase of life that they're in. What are some questions as a mentor you want to ask in order to understand about your mentee these 3 things, right? What are their priorities? Like based on your conversations with them, their pacing, right? And and about face, because those are the things that you are wanting to discover, because it's when you discover you're accurate about their current reality, right, then whatever you're advising or coaching in them becomes effective. If not, you end up advising the wrong problem. You know what I mean? Yeah. So sometimes thinking about, and this is a hint to you, thinking of the kind of questions that help you understand those things, right, might actually help you to advise better. Yeah. So I guess along those lines, then when it comes to mentoring young people, and thank you both for highlighting, it's different phases. Some of them are just going into jobs, needing to discover, maybe stay present a bit more to deepen their experience in the career. Some are still in school. So, how do you, what are some tips or your perspectives on how do you both support them but challenge them as well? Yeah, in your experience, what have been effective approaches to balance those things? Elena, do you want to maybe kick us off?
Well, that's a tough question, because for me, I believe in not babysitting, too much. So I would typically, as a coach, allow them to come to a conclusion themselves. That's what I would try to. And at the same time, I also tell myself not to be too emotionally vested in this whole conversation. So I support by giving them options, by getting them to think about the options, but I don't tell them what to do. So one of my something that I have to remind myself a lot, because at this age, right, we tend to talk too much. Sorry, I'm a lot older than you. So I always have to tell myself, take 1 second. So that big post-it is on my desk. Take 1 second. That means don't jump to conclusions. So I think that is kind of how I would like to support them. I like them to own that decision. But however, if I think that because of my wisdom or my experience, if I think that the decision that they came up with at the end of a mentoring session is wildly wrong, then I will have, I will feel that I'll need to step in a bit more, go beyond a little bit of the coaching philosophy and say, I'm sorry, but you know what? I think based on my experience, this is completely wrong, and here's why. So while I'm trained as a coach, which is don't judge, allow them to make the decisions, but if I feel that it's wildly wrong, I feel that it's my responsibility to challenge them a little bit. But at the end, it's a decision that they make, and I need to respect that, and I don't want to be too baggaged by that, because it will affect my motivation to continue coaching and mentoring.
I remembered what Maya Angelou said, and allow me to paraphrase what she said. We may forget what people say to us, we may forget what people do, but we'll never forget how people make us feel. And I realized that through the years of speaking to so many young people, we need to earn the rights to speak into their lives. And how do we earn that right? Is when they know we really care for them. When they know we really care, that's when we can both support and challenge. And when I say support, sometimes I look at support in terms of 3 H's. I'm sorry, I know I have a lot of acronyms, pardon me. 3 H's. We support them with our heads, our hands, and our heart. Sometimes they come to us, we need to understand them. And how do we understand them? There are questions that I will ask. It depends on the phase of that mentoring relationship, but very earlier on in a relationship, I will ask questions like, what keeps you awake at night? What makes you wake up in the morning? What are your priorities now? What is really important to you? Tell me more about yourself. Hear them out. I realized that, Michelle Obama has a book, Becoming. She has a journal. So for some of my mentees, I actually bought the journal. So I have a copy, they have a copy. And then sometimes when I meet them up, I say, page 24, for example, this question, why don't we do it together? So when we meet up, you share your thoughts, I share my thoughts. So I remember there was one question, it's about, how do you go to school, when you were schooling in your earlier years? So with that question, I understood my mentees so much more. Their motivations, how they grew up, and that really also allowed me to build trust. They trusted me more, I also trusted them more, because I know they're a lot more open with me. And with that background, they know that I really care. Of course, there are other things that we speak about. And when they know I really care, the support comes in. The support comes in when there are really some moments. I understand what Eleanor is saying and I agree. There are some decisions I say, you really have to own it. I can't do it for you. But there are really some moments where I have to step in and say, can I offer you this solution? You think about it, or can I offer you these few scenarios? Think about it. I support them with, sometimes they're really at an age where they cannot see what we see. It's not in the realm of their reality yet. They have not gone through it, but we have. But we also cannot say, I've gone through it, you trust me. We can't. I don't think that works very well. So I offer them solutions or scenarios because I want to support them in my head. And sometimes it's a hand. You know, I can't really help you in this, but I know a friend. I can connect you. I connect them. I support them with my hand. And why do I do that? Because I really care. And because I really care, they know I'm supporting them with my heart. And with that, that's when there are moments, because I've deposited so much in their emotional bank account, there are times when I say, I need to let you know this. If I don't say this, I'm doing you a disservice. I cannot. And because I care, allow me to challenge you in this. What you're saying is not the best. Maybe you want to consider something else. Because if you do A and not B, some things might happen. I could be wrong, but you really need to consider. I realize really, it's really the care and the support, then we challenge. I try not to challenge right from the start because I've not earned that right to speak into their lives yet. Of course, right from the start, if there is an attitudinal issue, then I might have to call it out. Of course, you know, with a lot of care and with a lot of respect. Because even behind the attitudinal issue, it could be something that happened, you know, from a past experience. I know of some mentees who are very uncomfortable with authority. It's because of a bad experience in the past, an ex-supervisor or even an authority figure in their lives and all. So I'm often very careful and very empathetic about it.
So, you know, and I've noticed this from the two ladies, right? Part of this balance that we're trying to juggle, to what degree do we support, to what degree do we need to challenge, it will vary from mentee to mentee just because their stories are all different. But what I do notice about the two of them is a very consistent, the support comes in first. Why? That you earn the right because you have done the work of really understanding their point of view. Before even the advice comes in, before even the, I think you're making a big mistake kind of thing, the hard work of actually figuring out, you know, what is it that they have, that they are experiencing. And to a certain extent, giving them the benefit of the doubt that they have done the hard work, right? That they have tried, you know, and so it's important to have them be able to share, and that takes a lot of trust building, right? But only when, you know, in a way, all their resources have been exhausted, that is when, as a mentor, there is an openness from the mentee to listen, yeah, right? But engaging in such a way that, you know, you seek to understand the world of your mentee. Right. The hard work of doing that, of the earning trust, of balancing the support and challenge, but then also empathizing and knowing that they are navigating a lot of different stages. Even between the two ladies here, you can see, right, their sweet spots are slightly different. And it's not to say that, you know, one is more important than the other. Oh my gosh, to that person that they're mentoring, that milestone is so crucial, right? And then finally, you know, in acknowledging the natural adjustments, we can also see that, you know, employers also have got a bit of challenge. And so therefore, our job as a mentor to also help prepare the mentee, right? And to be able to maybe frame it in such a way that they are better able to consider the multiple points of view, right? In order to design their way forward in their careers. Yeah, and I guess maybe one thing I wanted to leave as an image for all of us to bear in mind, later on when we go into the skills practice as well, is this image of an iceberg. And I'd like to maybe have that as a reference point. You know, whatever we see and whatever we hear from our mentees is maybe just the tip. And to also, I guess, be humble enough to realize there's a whole lot of other things that we might not be aware of. But these things that are underneath can be tremendous resource and a huge potential that the mentees don't know that they could actually utilize. And so therefore, as a mentor, to be able to have them reveal and come out, to bring that to the table as part of the discussion is actually the hard work of being a mentor. Yeah. Ladies, any last words before we draw this to a close?
Maybe I'll start first.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, I'm very heartened to see all of you here. I was just telling, the whole organizing team just now, Sharon, JL, Yijia, Ashley, that it's so beautiful to see human beings in front of me, if you know what I mean, and we're not on Zoom. I just want to be able to say that the fact that you're here, you really have a heart to want to help, but you also need to take care of yourselves. The fact that I can do this again and again for 16 years, having different kinds of mentees, it's also because I know where are all the different weak points of mine. For example, when I'm tired, when I'm stressed, or when I'm really very, 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 very dried up, I don't want to talk to a mentee. I always check myself, okay, did I drink my coffee? Did I drink enough water? Yeah, if I really am very, very low in energy and I want to speak to someone, I don't think I'm giving that person my best. So I make sure I take care of myself first. I try not to speak to people when I'm hungry or when I don't have caffeine. That's one. Number two, I can drink a lot of caffeine. Number two, really, you need to not take things personally sometimes. Okay? Yeah, need to protect your hearts. Sometimes when your mentee says something and it sounds very rude, it sounds like, you sure you know what you're saying or not? So-and-so told me this, my professor said this, my mother said this, my auntie said this. Don't take it personally. Sometimes when they come to you, it's like what Sharon said, they're already you're like their last option. They are so high-strung. They don't mean it. Don't take it personally. Protect your heart and say, I hear what you're saying. How can we work this together? Okay? Protect yourself. And last but not least, always ask yourself why you're doing this. I do this because when I was in my lowest, worst moments of my lives, or rather my life, people spoke. People cared enough to say, Yvonne, can I help you on this? Let me point to the right direction. Every time I feel like, this is a very unlovable mentee, I'm reminded that maybe one day, long time ago, I was a bit unlovable as well. So whenever you feel very down, you want to give up, ask yourself, why are you doing this? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Elena. Elena?
I guess a few things. Echoing what Yvonne said, I think that's, in a way, self-preservation, right? Like, really, don't be too hard on yourself. For example, there was a situation where I coached this guy very, very well. He gave me such a glowing testimonial, like 100% blah, blah, blah in his career transition. And he said, why don't you coach my wife as well? So I said, sure. So I thought, wow, I already did such a good job for him, no problem. But when I coached his wife, I actually did quite badly because I think I didn't understand where she was. I associated her with the kind of energy and growth mindset that her husband had, but she's the complete opposite. So I felt really bad. It took me a while to recover from that negative experience. So really, sometimes you do well, sometimes you don't do so well. So don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, like the two of us, the way we talk is like, wow, we are 100% all the time. Everybody that we touch turn into gold. But
Some are still coal, not diamond yet.
Yeah, but when Yvonne is such a good speaker. When I hear her say, Yvonne, can I sign up to be a coach?
You haven't seen me crying because of a mentee. There are down moments. Trust us. Yeah. Trust us. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like what she said about examining the why. Mm-hmm. For me, I'll tell you that it's a bit selfish because I feel more uplifted. I learn much more, and I'm a better version of myself because I'm a mentor or coach. Just because I learn so much, I learn empathy, I learn not to judge. So it's a selfish reason for me. I know I become better just because I give that time. So that's my why, but it could be a different why for everyone, right? So all the best to all of you, and hopefully you do your best, and don't be too hard on yourself.
Thank you very much, ladies. I do recognize that it is quite rare to be able to have the two of them together, and sharing insight. I just wanted to throw it back to you all. Is there anybody here that's got a burning question that you need to ask and you really would value some, perspective that you would like to ask? If that is you, could I get you to raise your hand and ask your question? Because they're not going to be here for very long.
Wow, you are very good.
Oh, wow. Okay, no, thank you. Yes.
You know, in moments like this, Sharon, I realize people start looking down, right? No, all of them were looking up.
Oh,
So
yeah.
proud, all of you.
Thank you. How may we address you?
My name is Haley.
Haley.
Yep.
Hi, Haley. Yes, what's your question?
I guess, do we need some technical skills to help them? Because from what I understand is that they actually look up to you in terms of your experience as well as your skill set. So is there something that we can work towards, if that makes sense? Or like, is there a certain skill set that we have to have in order to do this?
Sure. That's a very good question. Thank you, Haley. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, I'm just going to try to understand your question better. What you're saying is that, you think our mentees look up to us because we have experiences. And for you, for example, you are thinking of what are some of the techniques that you can have so that you can build credibility with your mentee. Can I say that? This is not from me. I read this book by Karen Leong. You can LinkedIn her. I'll let her know that I mentioned her. In a book, she said that influence is based on two pillars: likability and respect. We are able to influence our mentees because it's either they respect us or they like us. And different mentees require us to use different techniques. So don't worry too much about I may not have like 20 years of experience to advise my mentee who needs to be in this industry, but I'm here for you, my dear mentee. So some mentees, and I've learned, I need to kind of pull out the respect card first. There must be something, and I hate to do this, I really hate to do this, but there's some mentees I would say, actually, I've had 16 years of experience in this, I come from this workplace, I've done this. I've got to sing a bit of what I used to do in the past, not my favorite, but I have to play that card sometimes. And you definitely have cards to, like that to play as well. I'm very certain, Haley. But there are some, and most of the time I realize mentees come and they need to like me first before they allow me to say anything more. Picture with me, if this mentee needs me to, or rather needs to like me, and I say, actually, I have 16 years of experience. I'm certified in 12 different tools, which is true. I'm going to lose that person. The person is like, wow, you are there. Why are you here to help me? I think I'm not so good, Maybe you shouldn't help me because I'm really quite low, and you are there already. You are so high up there. I totally will lose that person. So you think about what card are you trying to play first? Is it the likability card or the respect card? So don't worry so much. The fact that you're asking this question shows that you really want to give something to your mentee. And I applaud you for that. You'll be a very good mentor. All the best.
Don't think about, if I'm a mentor, I must dish out advice. Sometimes it's just a listening ear, and that's it. So don't be too... because you may not have the domain experience or whatever to give a specific advice, but just be there, asking very open-ended questions, and I think that helps as well. So that could be a starting point.
And in fact, that's a very good question that you're asking, because that's exactly what we're going to be practicing in the next segment. Yeah. So if you, in terms of technical skill, it is true, but these are competencies that can be picked up. Things like, how do you listen with empathy? How do you ask questions in such a way that, like many of the Kung Fu that they pointed out, is exactly technical skill? What are the kinds of questions that you can ask that surface their priorities, their pacing, their phase in life, right? A lot of what good mentoring is not so much being able to give the right answer as much as it's being able to ask the right question. And honestly, asking the right question, the one who asks the question is the one that controls the conversation. Yeah. So it's skills like that you actually do get in knowledge and content on in the course that you signed up for. So that's the good news for all of us, right, as we sign up for the course, that these technical skills are the things that you're going to be able to pick up. And most importantly, you need to practice.
Sharon, so sorry. Just allow me to add something very small, yeah? So, Haley, I would say not to mention you in front of everyone, but I just want to say that, and I'm sure Elena will agree with me, we have not made it, yeah? We are not like A plus star kind of mentor. Mentoring is an art and a science. Every day I'm learning. Every day I'm sharpening that saw to be a better mentor to the next person. It's really a constant state of growth. And I fully agree with Alina. Mentoring really makes us better people. So many times I'm humbled. I'm humbled by the resilience, the perseverance of my mentee. I'm humbled by how my mentee doesn't give up. I'm humbled by when my mentee says, actually, Yvonne, you didn't get me. It happens. So we have not made it. We are still learning and growing. It's really an art and a science. So we just continue to give our best and our best and our best. Maybe I'll recommend a book, allow me to do so. You might have seen Dr. Hae-Sun Moon.
Oh, Hae-Sun.
So she has a book called Coaching A to Z. Small little book. It's like a chicken soup for the soul for mentors. She illustrates a personal story, and then she tells you some of the coaching principles behind it, and she gives you 3 questions at the end of every chapter. When I read it on the train, to and fro work, right, I started tearing on the train. So sweet a book. Just take that book. It will really, number one, affirm your intention to mentor. At the same time, it will give you some of the questions that probably can help you in the technicalities of mentoring. Dr. Hae-Sun Moon, Haesun, Moon, Moon as in moon. Yeah. Follow her on LinkedIn. She shares quite a lot of her nuggets as well. Yeah. Sorry, Sharon. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you very much, ladies. I'm sure that we've all picked up quite a few insights from it. Shall we appreciate them? Thank you very much, Elena and Yvonne. Yeah, you go ahead.